At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday, by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to all of the subscribers of the podcast, whether it be on Patreon, Facebook, or Circle. Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are currently watching, listening, sharing, supporting, all of that. Thank you so very much. So I am excited. We've actually been talking about this for a little while, and I'm finally here. I'm currently out here at the Eaton County Central Dispatch Center, and we're in Michigan, where I was born and raised, baby, here back in the home state. And I am currently here with Libby, and she is a dispatch supervisor with Eaton County. How's it going?
That is correct. Going very well.
All right. So, there's been a lot of different things going on this past week. A lot of it has to do with weather. So I do want to ask you that right away, because when I went to turn to come towards the center, I almost pulled off just so that I could take some video, because I was waiting for, I don't know, maybe some zombies or vampires to come out of the fog. It looked pretty freaky.
Yeah. Paired with our entrance surrounded by cornfields. It's a whole experience here.
What?
Either coming to work, coming to jail, whatever your travels might be, you're gonna enter through the maze of cornfields. So I'm sure the fog helped that atmosphere today.
Yeah, I did not see the cornfields. So not only do you have children of the corn, but you have children of the mist, or
That's
children
correct.
of the fog.
Yes.
So that's pretty freaky then. Yeah.
That's right. It's a fun place to work. We like it here.
What is it like then at night, or if you work mornings real early in the morning?
Mhm. Well, you were a
Either one.
dispatcher,
Yeah.
for me, when I'm coming into work at night, my kids were screaming, there were clothes everywhere, library books are flying, so you're really just in a mindset of get to work, your car just kind of goes. And then 12 hours, I leave at 5 a.m, you don't even notice. You're just driving through the cornfields trying to get home. So yeah, it's natural to us,
Right.
muscle
Yes.
memory.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember one time when I was still working in dispatch over in Allegan that it had snowed so bad that we're telling us, if you need to sleep here in dispatch,
Mhm.
just make sure to go ahead and do it, because the road commission and everyone, no one's going to be getting out on these back roads and you
Mhm.
might get stuck. And during that time, I was driving a Kia Sophia, and so 4-door sedan, right?
Mhm.
And I don't remember if it was front or back wheel or anything, but I had bald tires. And I thought, hell no, I am not going to stay, mainly because the last time I stayed, I got forced over
Oh yeah.
because somebody called
They know
in
where
and they're
you're
like,
sleeping.
we know Ricardo's in the one room. I won't
Uh-huh.
say the word because we're here in dispatch,
Yeah.
but I was in that room and I got forced in. So I pushed it and I actually made it through.
Yeah, that's right. If you're determined, you will.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of you who are watching and listening, you may or may not know this, but when you're driving through a bunch of snow, you just punch it. You just keep going, because the
Mhm.
moment you kind of slow down, I mean, of course, if you need to
Mhm.
slow down, you're going to slow down, right? But if you slow down to a point, you're going to get stuck.
That's right.
So I just kept it
Keep
floored
on
and I
keeping
was just
on.
going. And it was something else. But it
Yeah.
was definitely interesting coming in here because I couldn't see anything else. And I thought, wow, they must be way in the back.
That's right.
And it's just super foggy. So
Yeah.
yeah, you get into that mode where, like you were saying, you don't even pay attention anymore. Did you ever have any of those moments where you end up having kind of like that tunnel vision, where you're just on autopilot and you get to a certain portion of your way home and you think, how did I even get this
Yes.
far?
How did I get here? What did I drive myself home? Yes. How did I get here? My commute used to be much longer. It was a
Mhm.
whole 15 minutes, and that was a lot for me. So now it's down to 5 minutes. So
Hey, that's
5 minutes
even
I
better.
can do. Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
right.
So how long have you been in public safety to begin with?
Yeah. So I've been a 911 dispatcher for 14 years.
14
So
years.
yeah, it goes by fast.
Do you come from a public safety family or did you jump in green?
Yes, no, public safety. My grandfather was a firefighter, and then I grew up in a first responder household. My mom retired, 30 years dispatch, and my dad was a firefighter paramedic, and he is still a EMS coordinator, emergency manager, so he's still in it. Um, my sister's a dispatcher, and my brother's a volunteer firefighter. So there was a short period of time where I mistakenly thought maybe I would do something else.
I like how you put that.
And yeah, everybody else knew that that's not what I was going to do. But you can't tell a high school graduate anything. So I went off. I tried my best. I said, I can't get a job. What am I going to do? And my mom said, well, sounds like you're going to be a dispatcher. And so there we go. There we have it. And I've never looked back. So
Wow.
yeah,
So born and raised then. You
Born
come
and
straight
raised.
from public safety family. So growing up, what were some of the things that you remember, I guess, hearing?
yeah. So we were real lucky. We did get the fun parts of it. We had dinner at the fire station, and we rode in the fire trucks, and we knew the cops, and we got to go see mom at work, and hear the radios. And so we got all of the cool stuff, that now my kids are experiencing. But we also, I think, got a real dose of the real world
Mhm.
from a very early age, probably a lot earlier than most kids. My parents worked shift work.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was just dad home. Sometimes it was just mom home. Sometimes dad was at our softball game. Sometimes it was just mom at the hockey game. That was all very normal to us. We knew the world was bigger than us. And if my parents had to be somewhere else helping somebody else, that was just kind of natural to us. We didn't think it was a disadvantage or anything. And my parents always taught us that while everything wasn't perfect, we had it a lot better off than most people. We were very lucky. We were lucky as kids. We were lucky as a family where we got to grow up. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
So you have all of these experience and everything.
Mhm.
However, I do have to ask, growing up, let's say towards high school and everything, I mean, could you even get away with anything? Was it
Well,
possible coming from
yeah.
a public safety family and
Yeah.
knowing everyone and them knowing you?
Yeah, I think I was the first. I think I got away with maybe more than my siblings. And I do think sometimes too that they were focused on them. And, I was just kind of in the background, they didn't hide it as well as I did. We all did the
Oh,
same things. I just hid it so much better. So I think that was the blessing of being the oldest and being the first. So, but one thing I think worked on me that maybe didn't work so well on my brother and sister is the scare tactic worked on me, and if you go out at night after I went to Michigan State University,
mhm.
and my mom said, if you walk alone at night, you will get robbed or, other things. And I'm like,
Right.
oh man, she must know, right? She's the one taking all these phone calls. My brother and sister were like, okay, I'll try my luck. I'll be fine out here. They're
Right.
yeah. My brother and sister are, I think, sometimes more street smart, that kind of sense where I'm a
Yeah.
little more book smart. And I'm like, hey, my mom wrote the book on dispatch. If she says bad things are going to happen, I'm going to do what she says. So that worked on me. So, yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
the reason I asked too is because I don't come from a public safety family or anything, but because I grew up in a smaller town, everyone knew everyone.
Mhm.
And my dad knew all the officers mostly because he would go with migrant families to like different court cases or anything to interpret for the
Mhm.
courts. And then he became a gang specialist for troubled youth and all of this. So everyone knew my dad.
Mhm.
And also, I drove a jet black 1983 Z28 Camaro
Uh-huh.
and T-tops as
So
well.
they saw
Very
you
nice.
coming.
Yeah, everybody knew where I was at.
Mhm.
They knew the vehicle and stuff. So I really couldn't get away with things, but I was clever in in a sense where
Yeah.
there were some times that I could, but
Yeah.
otherwise, I would get home and my dad would say, "So, this or this." I'm like, I'm not going to make
Can't
anything
lie
up.
about it. He
Yeah,
already knows.
you got me. Yeah, I'm hit. So
Yeah.
it was interesting growing up, but that's why I ask you as well,
Yeah.
because you come from a public safety family. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different things that come with that. So
For sure.
you end up deciding
Mhm.
that you're going to go into public safety after all. You're going to go into the family business, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what was the family's response? Was it just, yeah, we knew you were going to, or they're like, that's great?
Yeah. It was everyone was on board, at that time. My sister, that's the only thing I would say maybe that separates me from the rest of them.
Mhm.
They all did field work, firefighter, EMT, even my mom, she
Yeah.
worked the road for many, many years. My sister thought maybe she was going to go into nursing. So they've all been in it, hands on, see it, smell it, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I knew I will give you this much, but I'm not leaving this dispatch room. So I knew that, I didn't want any part of that, but it's a whole family, police, fire, EMS, all of it. So I could ask any of them questions. If, there's not a question I could think of that someone in my family couldn't answer. And so it really was just this built-in, the smarts of it.
Yeah.
The I have a question, you have an answer. Also, the feelings of it, the mental health of it, they can relate to that dark sense of humor, we were talking about.
Yes,
They all have
exactly.
it. You're not awkward. You don't feel left out when you're with your family when you're cracking jokes like that, because they're all laughing too.
Right. Yes.
And so it really is like a sense of comfort, and we can all relate to each other.
Damn. Well, so before we get a little deeper into your story and what it was like for you in the beginning, thinking about growing up and coming from a public safety family, do you have any core memories from that? Whether it be, something that happened while you were visiting in dispatch, or if you did any ride-alongs, do you have any of those core memories?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I do. I would say, um, ironically, my dad was a firefighter paramedic here in Eaton County. So that was a cool experience. It was about 18 months that our careers overlapped here before he retired and got off the road. But um, there are very few like stories that I remember
Mhm.
myself. Like I was on the phone, I took this call. I don't really have those. Um I don't know if that's a coping mechanism. I don't really remember stuff like that. But I remember events. I remember big events. I remember the riots
Mhm.
at MSU, and my mom worked those. And, all these officers that I knew that now look so different. They're in riot gear, and, they're on the front papers. And we grew up there, East Lansing, MSU. And then I eventually went there. And so to kind of see it in that different light, that, and to see, my mom working through that and her officers working through that, that was different. And then I will say my dad was involved in a pallet fire here in Eaton County that was quite severe. And didn't know maybe the outcome of a few moments of that fire. And while I was not in the business, I don't know if anyone else, has a firefighter for a dad or a mom
Yeah.
for a dad. The radio's in the house. And so you don't know what's going to come across that radio. And so those are the type of things that I remember. And those were from my first responder life, my childhood. Those were not stories that I hold on to at myself as a dispatcher, but I
Mhm.
think it shaped um, me as a dispatcher and what I want my goal to be outside of this room, in this room. Those are the ones I remember.
Wow. See, I can't just listening to you talk about this, I can't even imagine sitting at home knowing that your dad is out there on this pallet fire and then having a few moments there where it's maybe silent
Mhm,
and you're just wondering what's going on.
mhm,
And but having that as a part of, one of your core memories and being a supervisor here, anyone who is coming in, whether it be their family or not, because I mean, this is like a family,
for
all of us
sure.
here are public safety family. But
Mhm,
I mean, as their father, sister, brother, whichever, you would be able to express that or share that story to be like,
mhm,
look, I know what you're feeling,
mhm,
and then go back into it. I
mhm,
feel like there's a lot of different situations that we go through. As I said earlier, when we were down talking with all the attendees of the training that's going on here as well, that allows us to help others, whether it be a caller or a coworker or something
mhm.
else, because we have that type of experience.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And to because you do, whether you've ever met the officer on the other end of the radio or not, or spoken to that firefighter, maybe this is your first time, it doesn't matter. Because here, when you're behind the council, you're in charge of them. You
Mhm.
are a parent, guardian, mom, dad, whatever you want to call, label yourself as. But they're all family words,
Mhm.
and we're here to take care of you. And so regardless, any sort of loss or injury or fear in their voice, you feel that. And so it would, be no different than if it was actually, one of our own.
Right. Yes.
So,
So you come from this background. You decide you're going to get into the family business, as we're
yeah.
calling it here now, and you start out with your training. Now you've had all of this, this experience, but now it's you. Now it's your turn.
Yes.
How was this for you in the beginning? Was
Mhm.
was there anything that surprised you? Were you overwhelmed at all? Did you have a moment where you're walking in and you see a seasoned veteran dispatcher or call taker doing their thing and you're thinking,
Mhm.
uh, am I gonna be able to
Yeah.
do this?
Can
Like,
I
did
do
you have any
this?
of those
Yeah.
moments?
Oh, for sure. And definitely, the pressure of, okay, everyone else in my family can do this. Am I going to be
That
the
is a
one
lot of
who
pressure.
can't, and
Yeah.
and so it's different, I would say how many things happen at once, and not just physically, but also, your emotions. It's not the phone rings, you hang up the phone, you dispatch an officer, and we're done and on to the next. It's all at once, and you're, especially as a supervisor, anything that you're doing, you're trying to focus on and do well. And then you're also watching all the other people in your room. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing by policy and procedure? Is their voice changing? Or is this affecting them? Do I need to step in? It's so many things just all at once that you can never explain, I believe, fully until someone gets in there and is doing it. And to feel the emotions and to have your hands going different ways, and one's on the phone and one's on the radio, and my emotions, their emotions, it's not something you can accurately describe until you're in it.
I fully agree. Yes, because I've had people ask before, like, what is it like when you're going through training? I'm like, it is all over the place. I mean, you're learning all these different policies and procedures. You're memorizing certain codes and all this other stuff. And then you're also are looking at the geography, because if you're working in a place that you don't live or that you're not familiar with, it's a little bit harder to get all of that down. Versus, like, for myself, when I was working out in Allegan, the whole west side of the county, I knew it. If you told me, a certain place, I would tell you who lives around there and what it looks like. Like, there's a tree that's been there since I was a kid, or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But on the east side, completely different. I didn't really know the east side, so I had to go and do geo rides. For those in the general public who are watching and listening, geo ride is a geography ride where you go and you drive. If you hear, like, Bob's Corner is on, over here, you would drive over there with an officer and say, this is what Bob's Corner is.
It's important to know what that is. Your callers are going to say that to you.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And if you don't know it, they're going to say, everyone knows Bob's Corner. Just get them over here. I'm like, well, I don't know Bob or his corner.
Yeah. Right. And, that's how I was. I would say geography was a big thing when I started. And I remember talking to my sister, and I was lost. And I was getting directions from her, and she said, where are you driving? I'm like, I'm on the highway. Which one? The one that drives by Walmart. And she's like, oh my word. She's like, which direction are you driving? I'm driving straight. And she's like, okay, well, where's the Walmart? It's on my right. And she's like, I can't with you. I don't know what to do with you right now, because I had no baseline whatsoever. And so with this job, I am much more conscious and realize the importance of knowing where you are. So,
exactly. I tell people all the time, especially my family, I'll say, make sure you know where you're at all times, whether it's, a cross street. And of course, they're like, what's a cross street?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Okay, let me tell you what that is. Or a landmark. What's a landmark? I'm like,
a mile marker.
Yeah.
The highway's numbered. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or, you have people who call in and say, I'm right over here by the meridian. I'm like, what's the meridian? And they're like, yeah, that grass patch in the middle of the highway is like, oh, the median. Like, that's what I said. I'm like, well, it's not, but
it's close, but not close enough.
Yes. Yeah. You end up learning all of these different terms and everything else. So, you're learning all of this. And so you're learning geography, you're memorizing these codes and stuff. Now you get to the point where you're starting to take phone calls. And I don't know how it was for you, but for myself, when I was training, we had this here, which we called the umbilical cord. You had
always connected.
Yes, always connected. You had your trainer next to you. You've got the connections, and they had this little contraption where they could hit the button to mute themselves, or to make them go through, so they could take over the call or whichever and keep going. So now you're getting into the thick of things, and you're taking phone calls. Do you remember that feeling? Do you remember what it was like? Was it nerve-wracking?
It was very nerve-wracking and frustrating. And of course, now looking back on it, I actually just had this conversation with one of our new trainees this week. She's been here 3 weeks. And we take a phone call, blah, 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 screaming, yelling, whatever. I'm like, okay, we'll have somebody call you. And hang up the phone. And she was like, what? And I'm like, let me try to explain it to you in the real world. What helped me through this is you can have a 2-year-old come up, and this 2-year-old rambles off, a whole thing, whatever. And the 2-year-old walks away, and your friend says, what was that? What was that language? And as the mom, you're like, oh, well, she's hungry. She wants me to turn Bluey on. She needs a blanket and an apple. And she's just like, How did you get that? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You have to learn how to speak their language. It comes with expecting what they're going to say, knowing the type of things that people call for. You can't teach it. It's something you have to experience. You have to go through it, and you have to relate to your caller, your child, whatever it might be. And while the rest of the world thinks there's no way I would understand any of that, you're able to get them a call from a phone call or from an officer, or get them an apple and Bluey or whatever it might be, because
Right.
you've learned that language. And
Right.
it takes time, and it is frustrating, but time is all that we can provide you, because that's what it's going to take. So
It makes me think of when I very first started. Well, when I was applying for Allegan, I was also applying at another agency at the same time. And one of the things that they did was they had about 30 of us in a room, and it was a pretty big room, so the acoustics were not great, and it was just like an intercom speaker system. And what they were doing was they played traffic. And for everyone there, they gave us, a piece of paper and pen or pencil, whichever. What they were doing was they wanted us to listen to the traffic between the officer and dispatch. They wanted us to write down exactly what they were talking about. And from 30, it went to about 10 people. Like they narrowed it, like that's how much they narrowed it down. And luckily for me, going into it, I had already about 3 or 4 years of experience listening to people on the radio, whether it sounds like they're eating their mic or whichever, they've got music on, whatever. You can make that stuff out, but it's because you've trained your ears to hear that. Now, on that point of training your ears and such, because you had all of this experience growing up, hearing stuff on radios, going into the center, whichever, do you feel like it was easier for you to develop that dispatch ear where you're, and for those watching and listening, this is what I call it. It's dispatch ear, where you're on the phone. You're not only listening to the caller, but you're listening to their environment, just in case there's anything else going on in the background. Your other ear is listening to the entire room, and you can focus in on each thing that is going on. Did you find that was easier or harder for you, given your experience?
I don't think it was easier. As a kid and growing up in that's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of the cool equipment and the cars and the uniforms. And so, I wasn't kind of focused on that. I think where I benefited from was the mental health of it, the work home life balance, the being able to have someone to talk to about, I can't get this traffic stop to go in, the fundamentals of it. That stuff was all still pretty difficult. And I think it was just having the mental health support behind it. Even, sometimes people they say they're okay with missing the holidays,
right?
And then it comes and they're like, it's really not, I don't think I can do this. Which half the time is equally just as hard as taking the phone calls and learning the job and doing all the tough stuff. It's the home stuff and the mental stuff. And so I was very lucky that I already had that. And I think that helped me through and helped me push through the fundamental items of the job.
I think that was one of the hard things for me as well, is the fact that I was going to be missing a lot of that family time, even though I was there with my public safety family, and I loved being there with them, because we were there. We had was each other, right?
Family,
yeah, exactly. But knowing that there was something that I was going to be missing. I mean, I remember one Christmas that I was working over in Allegan. It was Christmas Eve, and it was an 18-hour shift that I worked straight. And it was not that great. I loved being there with everyone, but I was missing so much. Plus, I was on phones for 18 hours straight.
The worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
Luckily, there was basically a blizzard that was going on, so people were staying home, and we
just
were
fighting in their house.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. and nobody was really calling us. We were just there waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
And we were all on one side playing Scrabble, because that's what we did in dispatch when there was not a lot going on. We would play Scrabble. And so the only other thing that made it good was it was double time and a half.
That's
So
right.
that was good.
They
But
pay you well to be there.
right. But I remember going home, and it was probably about, I don't know, 5:30, 6:30, something like that in the morning. And my family getting up, us doing Christmas, having Christmas breakfast, sleeping for maybe 2.5, 3 hours.
Mhm.
Because for me, and I don't know how it is about you, but I felt like I felt like I was missing things.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to sleep that much.
Yeah. For
So yeah, it was on me, but I didn't want to miss that much more with my family. So I
Mhm.
had only that little bit of sleep, got up, we opened up a few more presents, and then my ass went straight back to
Right.
dispatch
Yep.
and worked again. But also with family, I'll share this story really quick. When I first started in dispatch in Central Florida, I was in training,
Mhm.
and it was New Year's Eve. I was getting out at 10 o'clock. I was working the 2P to 10P shift. And there it was 8-hour shifts, just one dispatch round at a time, but it switched
Mhm.
every 2 weeks. So it was 6A to 2P, 2P to 10P, and then 10P to 6A
Mhm.
every 2 weeks. But when you got to that midnight shift, you were on that for a month.
Okay.
And then you switch right back to mornings, and it was
Mhm.
horrible.
I bet.
But I'm on this 2P to 10P shift, and I get a loud noise complaint. And the person starts telling me, one, the type of music, and then starts describing the house. And I thought, oh my God, no. This, can you tell me if there's a deck with like lights? They're like, yeah, you know the house. I'm like, oh my God, that is my house. Now, I didn't say this to the caller, but I said, we'll get somebody out there. And I end up putting it out over the air, and the chief calls up and he's like, isn't that your house? And I said, yes, that is my house. And he goes, are you going to call and warn them? And I said, I didn't know I could, but I mean, I will now. And the officer called me up too, and he goes, that's your house, isn't it? I was like, I already went through this with the chief. Yes, that's my house. And he just starts busting up laughing and hangs up on me. So I'm calling and calling and calling. And finally,
can't
my
hear
mom,
you.
I know, exactly. Yes, they could not hear me. My mom finally picks up the phone and she goes, oh, hi, mijo, what's going on? And I said, you're what's going on? And she goes, there's an officer here. And I said, this is what I'm calling you about. And she goes, what happened? I said, you guys have the music too loud. And she goes, I got to let you go. He's walking up. And I said, okay.
Good luck.
So I wait, and the officer shows up back at dispatch. He had been out there for a while, and he's busting up laughing, but then he starts like rubbing his stomach. And I said, did they feed you?
Of course they did.
He goes, I got tamales, man. I got all kinds of stuff. I didn't bring you a plate back
I was
because
gonna
you're already
say,
leaving.
meanwhile.
Yes, yeah, I
Yes.
was already going to be heading home. So those are some of the things that I miss, but missing that time with family, like that part, I don't miss at all. And that was really hard. And I think a lot of people getting into this profession, sometimes that's something that's really hard to deal with, where when they find that out later, even though maybe they were told that, they decide, I don't think I can do this because I'm going to be missing too much. Do you kind of feel like, is that kind of the same like everywhere? I think
I don't feel like that, especially with my family. And I understand, I'm very lucky, and this is how I was raised, but my mother's gotten crazier than even normal. We have now planned Christmas 2024. We are this close to booking it. So yes, exactly.
January
because
25th.
That's right. But she's retired.
Hi, Mom.
The only one. Hello, mother. Yeah. She was in, ironically, a hospital bed looking for this live cast of this. I had to tell her, no, Mom, they might have to edit it. Lord knows what
It's
I'm going to say.
pre-recorded.
That's right. And so, we're already trying to plan ahead because we know, right? We know my dad's still going to be working. My sister's a dispatcher. My brother's on the road. Like, there's no way. And so we just, for us, Christmas is whatever day we make it.
Yes.
And then I have my in-laws who that is not how they grew up, how my husband grew up. It was Christmas Eve and Christmas, and these are the dates, and that was not normal to them. But they just picked it right up. and so we talk, what day is Christmas this
Yeah.
year? Because it's not always on the 25th, and we have just always instilled it in our kids very early, that we do the holidays when we can do the holidays. And, sometimes they're lucky and Santa comes early, and sometimes they drew the short straw and he's not coming till the 28th, And so
Right.
it's just normal to them, and you spread it out, and you make the celebrations longer, or you do Thanksgiving on Saturday. And so it really, I think it is just your mindset and kind of what you're used to. And I think that it won't be easy for everyone.
Right.
It really won't be, especially when you start talking about family traditions. And we always do this on Thanksgiving, and that kind of stuff can be hard. But I just try to think about the things I get to do because of the job I have.
Nice.
And the field trips and the games, and I'm in my kids' classroom every week. And that's not something I would get to do if I worked Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
So it sounds like with some people that might be the case, but it's more so they find that out when they're in their training stage, because they're working, like they're here, like during those shifts and everything. But you go through it, you make the best of it, you figure out how to do it. We did the same thing. We had, holidays on not always the same holiday or whichever. And we do this because it's going to sound cliche, but it's true. It's a calling.
That's
Now,
right.
did you find, because I will say we don't do it for the money. It's not for the money. because a lot of places you don't get paid as well as you should, right? For the work that we do. But there's more to it. It's us being a part of something bigger than ourselves, and helping those that are out there who are looking for help, who need help in their time of need. So, going from there, you've got 14 years and everything throughout all of your time, and kind of looking back as well at the same time. Do you feel like there was a moment, whether it be a phone call, something that happened in dispatch, or something where it solidified the fact that you were where you're supposed to be?
I don't know. I would say in the last couple years, I think is really, I have been very fortunate to work in some really awesome places, and I've got to dispatch next to my mom, and I've got to dispatch for my dad, and all these really cool things. And it was just kind of like, yeah, we've always done this, right? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so then, here at Eaton County, we really encourage bigger things. Get out of the center. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do for this industry? Not just our center, but our industry. And so these last couple of years, I have really gotten into the mental health aspect of things. I want people to know how lucky I am that this is my career and this is how I get to raise my kids. And I want people to know how to take care of yourself mentally. And you're going to have line of duty deaths, and there's going to be tragic events that happen in your cities and on your campuses and stuff like that. And times are changing, right? This is not how mental health used to be. My parents did not get this. They got none of this. And so now, myself, this kind of generation, we're talking about it more. We're doing more things. We're making things happen. This next generation, I want it to be just as natural and as normal as how to operate the phone, because that's where we need to go. If we're gonna show this as a career and ask people to do this for 20, 25, 30 years, we owe them to leave this job with what they came with, whether it be your happiness, your health, your family, divorces, or missing huge chunks of your kid's childhood. How do we get through all of that? And I am very lucky. We're very lucky here at Eaton County and the opportunities that we have. But if we can push that and make that normal, more people can experience that. And that's what I hope for. I want people to feel like I feel, like we feel here, that we have the balance and we're leaving with what we came with.
Was there a moment then that pushed you more towards that mental health aspect, that whether it be a call or maybe someone that you spoke to or whichever, or something that you heard that you thought, that we need to push this a little more? Everything that you're saying, kind of feel like there might have been some sort of moment, something that really made you want to do that.
The hardest decision I've ever had to make in my career, and of course, easier now looking back on it, was the best decision I ever made, was to leave the center that I was at. For many reasons, that was very hard. But the biggest reason was my mom was there, and I left her. And I left her because at the time I had a 1-year-old, and I was not being an equal wife, mom, and dispatcher. Equal, would be minimum. I would say, we always say here, like, family comes first, no questions asked. Right. And I was not doing that. And so it was very hard. Like, okay, am I choosing my family that I live with, or am I choosing my mom, raised me, and I'm leaving her here? I felt like I was abandoning her,
Right.
And it was the hardest decision I ever had to make. And now looking back on it, now I'm here, and now I'm doing what I want to do with my career, with my marriage, with my kids. And so now I see what a good decision it was, but it was a hard decision. And it wasn't even a decision on the radio or on the phone, or isn't that ironic,
Right.
So for me, it was really this drive to be the best I can be at work, but I also need to do that at home. And I'm at a position now where I don't think either one is sacrificed.
I love that you shared this just now, because I think there's a lot of people that struggle with this as well, on where to go, what to do, and how to do it, but also what are other people going to think. And I say that because back in 2013, when I left, it was a very difficult decision, because I felt like I was just like you, how you felt like you were, kind of leaving your mom, maybe betraying or whichever. I felt like I was betraying my team, my whole family there. And it was through conversation and just them helping me realize that I was choosing me, and not just me, but that what I was hopefully eventually going to be doing, or somehow through what I was doing, I was not only going to be helping them, but I was also going to be helping 911 as a whole. And I finally did leave, but it didn't come easy.
No.
I remember the going away party, and I was crying while I was there. I was like, God, I was like, this is crazy. It's
Why
like,
am
this
I
is
leaving
my
this?
family.
Yeah.
I can't believe this. And everything did work out. It's been an amazing experience, but I think a lot of people do deal with things. And I'm happy that you shared that story and that side, because I can almost guarantee there'll be a lot of people who hear that, and it will also help them decide whatever their journey, whatever path they're on right now, to continue to move forward and evolve. And I think that's what we all need to do, is to be able to move forward and evolve, but also be, secure with whatever decision it is that we've made. But you got to take that first step.
The first step's always the hardest.
Oh my Lord.
And especially
yes.
after we just got done talking about how terrible the training process is, and it's so stressful and long and everything. And I just started all over again. 6 years in, I'd like to do that all again, please.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
But obviously it was worth it, even though
Absolutely.
the process was a hard thing. It was, terrible or whichever. What it also did was, for you being a supervisor, also if you're, a trainer as well, or whichever, you can help, like you were saying, that next generation come in based on also your experiences, and that'll help them as well. Again, people won't feel alone. So that is awesome. Now, before we get into some of the projects, really quick here with mental health and such, I have a question as we're getting towards the wrap up of this episode as well. What was it like working with your mom, or Not just that, but you said you dispatched for your dad as well,
I
right?
did,
So
yeah.
what were those two things like? Because
Yeah.
thinking about my parents, I love you, mom and dad. I'll say that right now. I don't know. That would be
Uh-huh.
it would be fun, but it would also be
Yeah.
it'd be nuts. It would
Yeah.
be something else.
Yeah. I'm so close with my mom, like a call every day, kind of, we're very, very close. And so we worked very well in the center. But kind of like, you were describing earlier, you're like, I'm going to tell this story on my podcast and I know my mom's listening.
Yes.
And so, when you're working, we're two different generations in that center and you talk about different things and different things come up. And so, you just kind of got to take it. And my mom knew when to turn around and, not acknowledge, Libby, her coworker and, her stories or whatever. But, otherwise we always worked so well together and the sounding board and, the relationship. I mean, she was my best friend and she had 25 years of experience. What could I ask her that she wouldn't know the answer to? And so that was really good. And, there's some mild stories and then some on the other spectrum, but, I'm sure my mom was grateful for me too. The younger generation, the one call that I remember having to explain my mom. First, I had to get her to quiet down because, like people say about me, no one will ever say, I can't hear you. No one would ever say that to me. And so I come by that honestly. But I just remember my mom yelling in the center one day, dogging you out. What do you mean dogging you out? Is there a dog involved? I need you to listen to me. Is there a dog involved? Dogging me. Okay, are you outside? Are you? And, people are trying to help her. They
Yeah.
can't hear or she can't hear him over herself, and KMR is what she went by. And they would say, Libby, you got to get KMR under control. You got to go get her. So she finally, gets off the call and she's like, damn, what does that mean? Dogging me out. And so we had to explain it. We had to explain it to her. She didn't know what that meant. And she's like, God, they just kept yelling, dogging me out. And I'm like, there wasn't even two people there. So, when her experience of 25 years could help me through some high priority things. And then when the kids are throwing lingo at her from campus, I was there to help her. So it was, I call it equal. We benefited equally from each other.
Very nice. Very nice.
And my dad was easy. He didn't have a choice. They don't argue with us.
This is true.
We wake you up in the middle of the night. We tell you to go to this call and you do it. It's so as easy as
so
that.
he never called you on the phone or anything?
Oh, yes, he did.
Oh, okay.
But,
I was going to say, like, you put one out, like, oh, Central, I'm going to call you here.
Oh,
just one
yeah.
moment.
And you can call me while you're en route, sir, but you've been sent to a call. So, yeah, that part was easy, right, Dad? I'm sorry it's 3 a.m. Like we always say, we don't put them in, we just put them out. So
that is hilarious.
Yeah. So he was the easy one. So, and he only had to put up with me for like 18 months. So, and then he got out of here. So. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is cool that you had that experience with the both of them, especially the dogging out thing. That's hilarious.
I know. And they still will, you go to the old center and there's a few of those KMR stories of, some things had to be explained to her. And as her daughter, I was willing to explain most of those. And some of those I just said, nope, that's somebody else's responsibility. So you gotta know your boundaries.
Oh, that really quick reminds me of a trainee that we had. We were telling a story about an officer who they ran a lady with the last name of Brown Eye, and the supervisor that was working, because I wasn't a supervisor yet, but the supervisor was working on lien. And for those watching and listening, in Michigan, it's called lien. This is for like your NCIC searches, your warrants, and license plate checks, all that stuff. And so the officer had sent me a message, and he's like, "You need to listen to this last name." And I said, "Okay." So I told the supervisor that, and he says the last name, last of Brown Eye, and we all start busting up and stuff. And she goes, "I am not going to say that name back." I was like, "Dude, you have to." it's your job. You have to say it
It's
back.
required.
Yes, but when she said it back, she goes, Central, in reference to Miss Brown Eye, and which made it even more funny. But we're telling this story later on, or I'm telling this story later on to a trainee, and she goes, she's not laughing, and I'm just,
Come
brown
on,
eye,
pick up on the humor.
you know,
Yeah.
and she goes, I don't get it. So I had to we had to explain, everybody else that was there, we had to explain what it meant, and she's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like an awkward laugh. Like,
Right,
she'll
yeah,
get
and
there
we're like,
one day.
all right, yes,
That's
yes,
funny.
it's kind of like that, yeah.
Kind of like that.
So before we get into like the very last question that I have for you, as we get into the wrap up of this episode, you had mentioned before we started recording, there are some projects and stuff that you're working on. What are some of those projects?
Yeah. So my passion is the mental health part of it, you know, and the mental health the mental health part of it, the work-life balance of it all. And so finding these trainings to send our people to, teaching them how to build a career out of this and a home life out of this. And so I'm happy to see the push from Nina, from APCO, from all these other training institutes that we really are focusing on mental health. It's such an important part. But then also we have to deal with the mental part of just your dispatcher, just them as a person, and how this family responds to family emergencies. And so one project that I'm really passionate about and just getting started is called the Phoenix Project.
Very cool
and
name, by the way.
Yes.
I dig that.
And you can look it up and see the history of it. And Dave Larton, who is a man of all trades, has recognized that there needs to be mental health for dispatch centers after these incidents happen, after these big incidents that we're all dealing with across the country, active violence, and the biggest and the baddest of the ugly. And so what are we doing for these dispatchers in these dispatch centers the day of, the week after, when the anniversaries arise? And so just these people that I have been humbled to meet and to just kind of start, you always, when you see these people who have 25, 30, 40 years, who have been involved in Sandy Hook, in 9/11, in the incidents in Maine, in Maui, all of these places, these are all people that I've been humbled to meet and try to put this together to start taking care of us. And not necessarily, not to exclude them, police, fire, EMS, not to exclude them, but we know we're different, right? And we require different things. And so this is really a push to start taking care of the dispatcher and start taking care of the dispatch center. And so really helping these people through these incidents, because unfortunately there's a large group of us who know how it feels and who know how it feels to go through this, how you felt a week after, what you needed, what you didn't know you need. And so I'm really happy to see the desire for this, and am like so proud of Dave to recognize, to have this idea, I want to do this, and going out and finding the right people to help do it. So it's
That's
cool.
awesome.
It's just starting, and it's like, when you hear about it, you're like, well, of course, why has no one thought of this before? And so it's, we want to look out for our people. And so we're just trying to figure out how now. So
Perfect.
So we're getting there.
That's
we're
awesome.
Getting there.
So
Yeah.
the Phoenix Project.
The Phoenix Project. Look it up. Look up all these names of just amazing people who are so good at their job, who, even today are just so deep in it, trying to help their people and take care of their center. And they want that for other centers too, to be prepared in the aftermath. So
damn. That is awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
I look forward
Super
to learning more about it and hearing more about it as the the time progresses and everything.
Yes.
Excellent work.
Yes.
So the final question that I have for you as we go into the wrap up of this episode, and it's been awesome to have you on here and hear your story and everything. with all of the experience that you have over these 14 or so years that you've been in public safety, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say that it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. You're going to take hard calls. You're going to experience hard things. And it's okay. Because 14 years ago, mental health is not anywhere near even where it is today. And so I think, unfortunately, we're in an age now where it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to get past that it won't happen to me attitude and be prepared. Be prepared mentally, be prepared physically, and don't be afraid of it. Be prepared for it, because it's your job to take care of everyone else when that happens. So yes, you need to be prepared for that, but also you have to take care of yourself. Don't forget that part of it. This is not a public service job that you have to give up everything about yourself for. Who you are will make you better at the job. Husband, wife, granddaughter, mother. Relate to these people that are calling you and know your worth. Help them take care of their mental health, but then take care of yours too. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much for being on. This has been a good time. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on all the social media. The easiest way to do this, though, is simply go to links.co/WTT podcast, and that's links with 2 Y's, .co/WTT podcast. This live broadcast, actually, this episode. This isn't live.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, sorry, Mom.
You've been looking for us.
This broadcast, that's why that popped in my head. This broadcast has been sponsored by Digital, a leader Next Gen Core Services. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen to the flagship show 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one.
You just listened to a Code 7 Network podcast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to WTTpodcast@gmail.com.